Sword Art Online was released on April 10th, 2009, and most everyone felt the same way. Finally, an anime that actually does MMOs justice. I've been waiting for this since Dot Hack Sign bored me to tears, and I'm sure most people felt that the first couple of episodes had some merit, until eventually it took a nosedive into waifu bait and mediocrity. At this point, I'm sure I have a part of the audience that is groaning. Another Sword Art Online video, we get it, it sucks, move on. And I agree. However, as with most reviewers, I'll say that there is never a point in time that this show is not relevant. It's not only bad, but also popular, and an adequate reflection of the values of normal anime viewers. And there have been a lot of videos already made about this subject, so I'm not going to speak about Seo specifically. Instead, I'd like to talk about the genre itself, the trapped in an MMO video game anime genre. I've heard it's called isekai or something, but that actually means something else. For simplicity's sake, I'll call it that. So, the idea of isekai is to take a person and throw them into another world and see what happens. Have them interact with a completely different social structure, rule set, and value system using knowledge gained from what is assumed to be our world. And I think that's why these shows are so popular. It makes characters immediately relatable because they are essentially normal people. It gives us a logical assumption of the type of trope that these characters are. It also gives us an excuse for exposition to be given to our main protagonist, and allows us to fill in the blanks of who these characters are without requiring you to learn an entirely new cultural norm. You don't have to know the exact backstory of Natsuki Subaru. Just say he's an otaku from Japan and your mind will fill in the blanks. These shows come with the expectation that you are aware of the characters and genre tropes, without having to be shown specifically why someone is the way they are. Another common theme, which is the basis for my analysis, is the nature of the world relating to video games. We see it in almost all of them. Sword Art Online, Log Horizon, Konosuba, No Game No Life, and this one. It gives the world a set of rules that again the creators are very aware are obvious to the target audience. Video games and anime usually go hand in hand. It's a very fingers and thumbs rule. While not all gamers are otaku, more than likely, all otaku are in fact gamers. But we already know this. This is clearly beating on a dead horse. However, don't worry, I have a plan. So, most isekai shows have a varied reputation, going from completely repugnant to hilarious parody. However, if there was one that beat the odds and stood out as a good show, it would have to be Log Horizon. Log Horizon is the quintessential MMO anime. It has a calm, intelligent, attractive main character who uses his cunning to dupe his foes. It shows real MMO mechanics and game systems in the way that modern MMO players would understand. It takes a realistic, albeit optimistic, look into how people would react to arriving in a new world that has become a video game. Log Horizon is great at many things that make it a worthwhile watch for those who felt that Seo failed to meet their expectations. It's also about economics, and the logistics of creating demand in a world filled with immortals who effectively don't have to eat or sleep. It's about politics, and how a kingdom reacts to new political players who have no obligations to any sort of rule of law, monarchy, or even the laws of death. It's about the singularity, and the implications of true artificial intelligence interacting with a society where humans are the outsiders to their own creations. In fact, I could argue that Log Horizon is about almost everything under the sun, except for one thing, and that is video games. Now, it takes place in a video game and has the rules of a video game, but it is not about video games, at least as far as they pertain to the audience. So I want to stop here and give you my contentions real quick and pre-warn you. I am more than likely reaching and my point might get a bit convoluted, but the general idea of my essay are these 3 points. Number 1, an anime taking place in a video game is not necessarily about video games. Number 2, the genre is at its best when the work itself acknowledges that there is in fact another person behind the avatar. And 3, that in order to revive a dead horse, you must first sacrifice another dead horse. So effectively, this video is also about dead horse necromancy. I'll explain later, but if that image doesn't excite you, then I don't know what will. Everything that happens in Log Horizon are things that happen in MMOs, obviously. Role-playing, PKing, monopolizing economies, starting guilds, leveling up, etc. This is one of the core reasons that Log Horizon has garnered so much respect than the other isekai anime. We like to understand the rules of the worlds that we are thrown in, especially if it is portrayed as a video game. According to the Daedalus Project, one of the 3 biggest motivators for playing an MMO is achievement through understanding mechanics and gaining power through that understanding. Most everyone who plays games like EverQuest, Final Fantasy, and of course WoW desire to understand game systems because it makes you feel a sense of accomplishment and progression. It gives you a tangible value that you can tweak with dedication and time. So when going into an anime that is trying to appeal to those who play MMOs, it is important to show as much detail about the game mechanics as possible to help the audience suspend their disbelief that this is in fact a game that people willingly play. That is one of the biggest criticisms of Sword Art Online, that being that the game itself cannot possibly be interesting to play or popular because of the lack in detail in the mechanics, and a lack of understanding on the creator's side, thus breaking the suspension of disbelief. So, the obvious answer is make an anime where the mechanics of the game are emphasized to appeal to the audience in a more visceral way. Give us more stats on screens, explain the Holy Trinity, or what a DPS class is. Make it very clear that this is not only a video game, but this is a video game that you play. This is World of Warcraft. I'm going to take a detour real quick and say that I was once a player of the WoW. I raided a few times, played the hell out of the PvP, I was a warlock by the way, and my best memories come from gaming the auction house and controlling an entire server stocked with obsidian shards. It made me feel great. These are the experiences MMOs can give you. However, the only reasons that these adventures were fun was because I knew that this was a world that was filled with other players like myself, and it was them that I was screwing out of their precious gold, and it was them that I was destroying at Arathi Basin. It was only memorable because there was in fact a person behind the screen. That's the type of player I was. That's what makes MMOs interesting. There are actual people behind the avatar. Looking back at the Daedalus Project, there's a big section about player identity. I quote, "For some players, the avatar becomes a purposeful projection or idealization of their own identity, while for others the avatar is an experiment with new identities. There are also those whom the avatar is merely a pawn, the means for an end." In Log Horizon, for the most part, all of the characters are just anime tropes. Not that they're bad tropes. In fact, we get a lot of good archetypes that directly correlate with real-world characters that happen to be in MMOs. We have several role players, merchants, PKers, and so on. However, we can only ever get a look at who they are in the game itself. Rarely in this show does that translate to who they were in the real world. However, when it does, it makes for some of the greatest scenes in Log Horizon. In arguably the best arc of the whole show for those who are interested in heavy gameplay mechanics from MMOs, and me, who enjoys the commentary on modern gaming culture, we have our combat guild, the Silver Swords, who has just gotten wiped from what looks like the hardest raid they have ever faced. One that effectively was made to not be possible to win. They all look like they are about to give up. Here, Shiroi has his biggest character building moment in the show. He remembers how in his previous life he was very antisocial. He used Eldertale as an escape from a life filled with people who he didn't know how to interact with. This allowed him to build up social skills to be able to maintain and lead people, but still keep everyone at a safe distance, never risking to open himself up or trust his friends with his plans. He realizes that this raid will require that everyone be on the same page and that everyone trusts him to figure out this impossible quest. This is a great example of using the avatar to look at who he was in the real world. It makes Shiroi a much more interesting and relatable protagonist. However, even better than Shiroi, we have William, the leader of the Silver Swords, who is struggling to bring up the morale of his crew. They have been beaten, and unlike when Eldertale was just a game, they can't just log off and try tomorrow. This is real life now, and they are forgetting why they are even raiding in the first place. That's when William finally opens up to his guild. He recalls how in the real world he was just a social outcast who was unable to connect with anyone. He found Eldertale and learned teamwork and camaraderie. His passion for the game carried over when the game became real, and he says that it made him very happy that he was in the world with all his friends, and closer to his true passion of raiding every day. This line gets a reaction from his guild for an interesting reason. It's actually something that doesn't get addressed until the end of Season 2. How many adventurers are actually enjoying living in Eldertale? There's gotta be a good number of them who are having a terrible time and want to go home. We actually see this later on with the Odyssey Knights, who seem to be trying to brute force their way out of the world by dying over and over. William, however, says what's been on everyone's minds, but never truly said out loud until just now. Just like there are definitely people who don't want to be here, there are many who were truly happy when they were brought into the game. William and his team love raiding, and they love Eldertale, and if they gave up now, they would be going against what made them love the game in the first place. And in what I believe is the most human and relatable moment in Log Horizon, William says, "We are gamers, damn it! And this is what we fucking do." This scene perfectly encapsulates what it is that achievement-based gamers feel when they accomplish something. When you are playing an MMO, there is always a feeling in the back of your mind that maybe what you're doing doesn't matter, and that you are wasting what little time we all have left. It's a feeling I'm all too familiar with when I'm watching anime, playing video games, or doing anything that isn't moving me forward in life. When Williams says this, he is affirming that he has no shame in what he does, even though he does recognize that people will think less of him for it. He says, fuck the stigma. He loves what he does and it has value. So that's nice and all, but what's the point? My point is that Log Horizon is at its best when it acknowledges that these players are reflections of their real selves. We look through their avatar to see who they were and who they are now, and that is the true character. That is identity. When you talk about video games, you are inherently talking about escapism, identity, and the human condition of attempting to find meaning in the things we put our time into. That is the strength of this genre, and it is exemplified in this scene. We feel his passion, and we almost want to cheer for him, and I'm positive that it made some people reinstall WoW, just like I'm sure Bakuman made people want to draw, and Beck probably started Band or two. MMOs are inherently social, so they are inherently about people. Just to be clear, this show is a 10 out of 10. But only when these concepts overlap. Otherwise, it could have easily been about any other fantasy world. And that is a weakness, but it's not a fault of the show itself. Let me be clear that going too highbrow is dangerous. And now I must tell you that this video was in fact a ruse. I wanted to make this my first analysis video for two reasons. First, I wanted an excuse to talk about Log Horizon because I fucking love that show and it's great. And if you don't think so, I'll fucking fight you or kick your ass. And second, because I have a dead horse to resurrect. Yes, I only made this video to supplement my true goal. You see, you aren't dealing with your average pretentious anime reviewer. I am, in fact, a Dot Hack Sign apologist. That's right, people. I think Dot Hack Sign was good, and not just for the god tier soundtrack. I believe that it is one of the greatest multimedia concepts ever conceived. Or at the very least, it's not as bad as the critics think. But that's all for another time. The next video might take a while, and I can't guarantee that it'll exactly be the next one, but the follow-up to this essay will be the case for Dot Hack Sign not being that bad, actually. I might change the title.